do you think it's necessary to obtain a seminary degree in order to be a pastor?
Well, it would be hypocritical of me to insist.
You might paint yourself in a corner on this one.
If I say yes, you must get it, I might paint myself in a corner, as you say. No, I don't think it's necessary to get a seminary degree. I do think it's necessary to get what seminaries offer.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think are the necessary components to a good pastoral education training?
I think a pastor should be well grounded in theology, both systematic and biblical theology. I think ideally he should be well trained in the original languages, Hebrew and Greek. I believe that he should be aware of the contemporary theological world. He should be well read. He should be able to understand all the intellectual currents that are going on. And all of those things a good seminary does well. Okay, the thing where I think seminaries what seminaries don't do, and some of them, the best of them will say, and that's not our job. The worst of them say, what's that? But qualifications for ministry are set forth in Titus 1, 1 Timothy 3. They're all character issues, how a man governs his household and his manner of life and that sort of thing. Now, if you've got a young kid who's married, got a couple of little children, and he graduates from college in English and he goes off to seminary to spend 3 or 4 years in seminary. And the seminary is basically, if it's a good one, it's going to be high-end grad school. It's going to be a lot of work. And this guy wrecks his marriage but going through seminary.
Right.
Why? What are you doing that for? So what I would like to see is at the same time, if this guy is just the youth pastor and somebody says, hey, let's make him the assistant pastor because everybody likes him, right? And then he's the assistant pastor for 5 years and the senior pastor leaves and he becomes the pastor, and he's got this, he knows everybody, but the theological structure underneath, he doesn't have a foundation. That's no good. That's no good either. So what I think we should want is rigorous academics delivered in the context of the local church, where the seminarians or the ministerial candidates' life and family are of concern to the pastors, those who are training him. They want him to have a good marriage. They want him to have a good family. They want him to verify his gifts and calling by how he ministers to his family and how he ministers to the broader church, and get the academics at the same time. That would be, in my mind, the ideal. Now, sometimes you have to bounce between things, like you go to seminary and get the academics and then go become an intern in a good church that cares for you, and so you can use the seminary system as a component in getting what you need to get. But I don't think the system that we have dialed in, where you graduate, then go to seminary, and then get a call for a church, I don't think that is a good one.
And you think it misses because you're not necessarily getting the oversight or the accountability for your how your family is doing?
Yeah, how you personally are doing. Okay. Are you walking with the Lord? Do you have anything to minister to us?
Okay. You said that you think it should be done in the context of the local church. Is there any other element of the local church context that's a big part of pastoral education?
Well, yeah, we have Greyfriars Hall here at Christ Church, and one of the things that we have the second year Greyfriars start to do is they start coming to elder meetings, and that's where you see the sausage getting made. You come to the elders meeting and say, oh, this is not, the ministry apparently isn't sitting in a study full of attractive books reading theology. It's dealing with someone who won't support his wife and kids, or dealing with a church discipline case, or you're dealing with all these gnarly things, and the seminarians are sitting there saying, do I really want to do, is this what I want to do? Right. And I think it's a good reality check.
I know that this is sort of self-serving, but can you flesh out some more of the elements of Greyfriars that make it a good pastoral training program?
Well, we have classes it's in the context of the local church, like I said. We have classes, biblical theology and systematic theology. There's an academic component to it, because when our Greyfriars are done, some of our Greyfriars courses are cross-listed with New St. Andrews, so they don't get a degree from New St. Andrews, but they're halfway toward a master's degree just from the Greyfriars study. So there's the academic rigor that supplies. They get training in the original languages, Hebrew and Greek, in Greyfriars, and at the same time we do this in a way where we're involved in the lives of the Greyfriars students. So there's a monthly Bible study with the Greyfriars and their wives. My wife gets together with the Greyfriar wives periodically. I do a weekly go down to Bootzer's and have a beer with the Greyfriar students to just sort of have a table talk session. What's on your mind? What's going on here and there? So there's a lot of personal interaction.
How about the Pesher group?
Oh yeah, the Pesher group is once a week. I meet with the Greyfriar students. It's the day after I've done my sermon outline, and I come down and I just hand out my sermon outline on Thursday, and they read through it and make comments. And what about this? And why'd you do that? And have you thought about this connection over here? So the Greyfriar students go over my sermon outline for me, give me a lot of good ideas, and give me a chance to think through some things.
So they get how the sausage is made on the sermon side of things.
That's right. They look at my outline and go, jeepers, are you going to preach that? Is that what you're going to preach?
Right. And then also you've got the counseling component, and then preaching within the
homiletics. Yeah. So training and preaching, delivering a sermon, then counseling. There's a course in pastoral counseling, and then one of the things they start doing is filling pulpits, doing pulpit supply in area churches.
So you're not just preaching in front of your fellow students. By the second year, you're actually going and preaching in congregations.
To actual people who have actual opinions about how you did.
Okay. And then with Greyfriars, you have, I know you have a conviction about this being an expense that the church shoulders.
It's tuition free. So we obviously, if it's a young man who's got a family, he usually has to work to feed his family, but we don't have tuition costs on top of that. Okay. So this is if we believe in the student that there's a good chance that God's calling him, and then we will invest in you. Another thing we do is when someone comes to us from their home church in New Mexico, let's say, or somewhere else, when they come to us, part of their application to Greyfriars is we ask people who know them to vote for them with necessary adjustments made for age, maturity, and experience. Is this the kind of person you'd be willing to vote for as an elder in your church? So that's part of their recommendation. That's part of their application. Yes, I would be comfortable with this person as an elder.
So I've co-opted this guy's question to try to get a Greyfriar plug out of you.
Okay.
But he's describing a situation where this is somebody who's on their own, reading up as much Reformed theology as they can, reading their Bible like crazy, which sounds a lot closer actually to your pastoral education.
Well, provided it gets done.
Okay.
Right? Everybody knows how easy it is to make a resolve to read. Right. It'd be a whole lot cheaper if I just read my Bible 100 times this year, and then
in all the original languages.
In all the original languages, and I wouldn't have to pay anybody anything. And I'd say, okay, fine. How's that working out? Okay. Right? So it's like going on a diet by yourself. It's like weightlifting by yourself. It's like running by yourself. Okay. When it happens, great. But it happens 1 in 100 times. So God has built us to live in community, and we need one another, and we need one another in everything we do, including what we're going to be doing. So I sympathize with this desire not to be in a mountain of debt when you come out of. Yeah, that's good. But I think there are ways of doing it. Training in the context of the local church, where the church recognizes your gifts and abilities and wants to cultivate them. If you say, yeah, but I can't find, I've talked to 20 churches and nobody recognizes my gifts and abilities. Right. I'd say, well, that should tell you something too.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So there's a huge advantage in having a group of men around you who will tell you when you're just not in the right spot.
That's right.
Okay. So if you have somebody who's let's say somebody who is getting thrown into the ministry similar to the way you did, where it's not via seminary, a lot of figuring things out on your own. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for them? And then flip it around. Let's say you have somebody who's going the very traditional seminary route and is going to come out with an MDiv, but maybe not much connection to an actual local church. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for that situation?
Well, we start with that guy. If someone comes out with an MDiv and assuming that he's not in a financial jam where he has to get a job and mm-hmm. he's not bound to play the game, mm-hmm. let's say, he's independently wealthy and he can just do what's best for his soul and his future parishioners. I would say, all right, you got your theological education. Go find a church where God is honored, the word is preached, and you think you have a lot to learn. Not a church where you think you have everything to teach them, but a church where you could get a job for a year or two and just take it in mm-hmm. and be fed. Go into that church, plug in, be an active parishioner in that church. If you find people seeking you out, would you lead a Bible study or would you do this or do that? Then that's an affirmation of your gifts and
so
call.
Let yourself receive an actual call, not just a degree.
Right, because when you treat seminary like grad school, like I just got a degree in engineering, you have a ticket to ride. Okay, well, where can I go? Where can I go spend it? Where can I go do this? But nobody, by paying grad school tuition, nobody has an automatic right to be a shepherd of God's people. Okay. That you really want God's call through His people and through your own motivations to line up and be in the ministry because you can't really rightly do anything else.
Okay. And then the first guy.
The first guy who's
laboring with a reading list.
Laboring with a reading list. I would say it's the same. Actually, it boils down to the same in both instances. I would say find other people, like-minded people. Surround yourself with people who are trying to do the same thing. Okay. For accountability, for reality checks.
Okay. Thanks.